Hi, everyone. Welcome and good morning. My name is Rina, and I'm the CEO of 280 Group. I'm joined today by Roger Snyder, our VP of Marketing.
Good morning.
And we're bringing you this broadcast from our homes today. So we're really excited.
We are.
Yeah. So really excited to be bringing you this webinar. Obviously, it goes without saying that these are quite unprecedented times. And so we're really trying to do what we can for the product management community. Roger, can you move to the next slide?
Yeah.
So again, first things first, please stay positive. Take care of yourself and your family, your loved ones, your community, and use this time to help others. Find out what you can do for others in your community who may be affected by this unprecedented time. In addition, one of the things that we're thinking of at 280 Group is we're working right now to put together a webcast addressing some of these challenges that product managers may feel when things don't go as planned. So stay tuned for more information on that webcast. If you haven't yet subscribed to any of our free resources or our newsletter, that's where we'll be announcing it. So stay tuned.
Very good.
So now more than ever, we encourage our communities to stay close, share stories, share challenges. This is the great time to join either our LinkedIn group, we have a Facebook group, but there's plenty of other product management communities out there on the web. So I'll be actually posting a link right now to join our LinkedIn group, but feel free, stay in touch with your community and don't be afraid to share stories. People are out there and they're willing to help.
Absolutely.
So right now, I'm going to go over a couple of housekeeping items and then tell you a little bit more about 280 Group. And then Roger here is actually going to be taking you through our leadership webinar series today. So first, I'd like to address our most popular question of the day. It's, will I get these slides and a recording of this webinar after the webinar is over? And the answer to those is yes. We will be recording this webinar. You will be getting the slides after the webinar is concluded. We are going to be leaving time for questions and answers as usual. So please, if you have any questions throughout this webinar, we encourage you to just type it into that chat box on the right, and we'll get to them at the end of the webcast. So as I said, the agenda for today, I'll be telling you a little bit more about 280 Group and what we stand for. I'll go over what this product management leadership series is about, and then Roger will take over from there to talk a little bit about how to assess your team and reach peak performance. So at 280 Group, our mission is to help companies and individuals do great product management and product marketing. That's all we do day in, day out, and we do that using our optimal product process framework. Here is just a quick view of what our process framework looks like. You can see it goes throughout the entire product life cycle from starting and conceiving an idea all the way to retiring a product. And today, one of the things I'd like to point out is we have a lot of online learning options for you and your team. One of the things that we do know is true is that learning and development at these moments really encourage this community team building feel. So choose to, if you can't take one of our courses, we really encourage you to start building team morale and making a plan for your learning and development. So that means attending these kinds of webinars. It also means maybe there's a book that your team could read that will really up their skills. And of course, you can, there's plenty of resources at 280 Group, including our online courses. For our webinar attendees today, we are also offering a coupon code that will give you a discount off of any of our online offerings. We really want to make them accessible, especially at this time. So I think that coupon code is for 200 off.
That's correct. Very good.
All right, so a few of us have joined us before at this product management leadership webinar series. This webinar series was actually we interviewed a lot of product manager leaders, and we wanted to address topics that really mattered to them. So, being product managers ourselves, we conducted plenty of surveys, and we identified a couple topics and themes. And we actually produced this webinar and the tool that you'll see today out of a need that we found in the market for leaders to assess their teams, assess their organizations, and know whether or not they're doing well. So this particular webcast is going to be on the theme of how to transform my team. Of course, our ultimate goal always is to help your team and your company build great products that matter to you and matter to your customers. So today's audience, we actually have about half are product manager titles, and then we got a good quarter that are director or VP level, so leaders in the organization. And we have about another quarter of folks who are in like the other title category. So that's kind of your peers today. That's a little bit about us. Now I'm going to turn it over to Roger, our VP of Marketing, and he's also our Principal Consultant and Trainer. So Roger has over 25 years of experience in high tech and product management. Before joining us at 280 Group, Roger led plenty of teams for over 15 years. I mean, he served as Senior Director, Vice President of Product Management at multiple firms, including OpenWave, Immersion, and Microsoft. And Roger has worked with a lot of companies at 280 Group in various industries, including consumer products, technology, SaaS, health insurance, and professional services. He really uses his expertise to help companies improve their product strategy development and full product lifecycle process. Roger is a member of AIPMM. He's a certified product manager and an agile certified product manager and product owner. He has a Bachelor of Science in Electrical Engineering and Computer Science from UC Berkeley and an MBA from Santa Clara University. So Roger, take it away.
All right, thank you so much. So today we're going to be addressing how do you diagnose the quality of your product management team. And we're going to take it from 4 different angles. But before we get into it, we're going to kind of talk about the general sense of how mature is your product management or product marketing team. And you may have seen this chart before. We use it every once in a while. We talk about the fact that we have, over the course of our 20+ years in our business, seen a relationship between how well your team is organized and how well you're then able to deliver customer satisfaction and deliver profits for your business. And we've kind of seen that companies flock into these 3 major categories: ad hoc, partially defined, and optimized. And when you're in the ad hoc space, unfortunately, there's just kind of no consistency in the way product management is being done in your business. There's no repeatable processes, and people don't know exactly what they're supposed to be doing or not doing, and they kind of lack tools to help themselves do the job more efficiently. The result that I have seen before is that teams are frequently kind of reacting to the news instead of making the news. Now, companies that are a little bit more mature in their product management processes are what we call partially defined. And when you're partially defined, you've got some things going on for yourself. Oops, what happened there? There we go.
Oh, keeps fine. Switch.
Here we go. Sorry about that. With partially defined, you've got some things going on. There are some processes, maybe the roles are clearer, and you are making traction with your products. You're seeing improved customer satisfaction, you're seeing improved profitability, but things are still not completely clicking, right? When you reach the optimized level, that's when you really see that things are now really humming. Everybody understands their roles. You've really got consistent processes, consistent decision making, very, very powerful. And when you're doing that, that's when things are enabling your product management team to become product leaders.
So obviously we want to move up and to the right. When we work with a lot of different clients, oftentimes when they self-diagnose, and a lot of them have the honesty to say, we're an ad hoc. I think more companies are in the ad hoc stage than they even think. But absolutely, our goal is always to move up and to the right as much as possible.
Absolutely. And Rina has done some research. We've all done some research on, why optimize? What happens as a result of going about and doing optimizations? And we've looked back at the results of optimizations that we've helped customers work on, and the results have been astounding, honestly. There's faster decision making. You're able to drive valuable outcomes, not just get into this spin of let's just keep building features for a product that we've got out there, right? Let's just keep feeding the engineering and development team beast to keep them busy. No, what you want to be doing is completely understanding your customers' needs and driving these valuable outcomes. And that allows you to then build a team that people want to be a part of. People want to join and be excited to be a part of that team. So it helps you also attract and retain the right talent. And then it allows you to keep learning as you go from product release to product release. Keep building on the successes, keep improving the way you go about things, and ultimately fuel the growth of your organization.
That's right. A lot of the companies that we work with, I mean, these problems really stem throughout the organization, and you might find it at your organization. For example, if you're having difficulty onboarding a new product manager, like what does that training look like for them? Is it clear what their role is? If you can't onboard people well and quickly, or you can't retain learning from project to project, it's really hard for a company to grow.
Absolutely. Right. So our ultimate goal here, the ultimate goal of this series, the ultimate goal of optimizing your product management organization is to enable you to build products that matter to you and matter to your customers. So when we take a look at a company and an organization, a product management organization, we try to look at its organizational health, do this diagnosis that we had in the title of our webinar today, into 4 different categories. We look at roles and responsibilities. We talk about alignment, and we'll talk about alignment in a couple of different dimensions. We talk about measuring product success and ensuring product success. And then we talk about your underlying process and tools. And what we do is we actually have this checklist, this organizational health checklist, and we're going to give that to you today. In the follow-up email after this webinar, we'll give you a copy of this checklist. And it's really literally ask yourself 20 questions to help evaluate how are you doing as an organization. And we're going to go over them at a high level in this webinar and give you some tips as well on how to improve. So let's go into the first category. And I didn't want to use the boring titles that I just kind of went over with you now. I want to talk about things like, well, so what does your team do, right? So let's talk about roles and responsibilities from that perspective. First off, do you have a clearly defined role and responsibility for product management, for product marketing, and then for all the other players on your product teams? Now you can use this framework that you see up on the page right now to define things in terms of the scope of a product team, or you can use it to go higher and talk about, okay, what are we going to do? Sales versus marketing, marketing versus development team versus product management. So you can use it in multiple approaches. The one we have up here is how do you define your roles across a product team? Because every day your product managers are going to all be working with developers, product owners, marketing, right? Your sales. So this is a powerful way to do that. And the thing that is most important, and notice that it's a slide, right? This is not long, full-length Word documents of job descriptions. This is what's my responsibility? What are the key deliverables I'm supposed to be providing to the rest of the team? And what's my center of expertise? It really is just that high level, and getting this well established can really help each other start playing the different positions on the team that they need to play. Very, very powerful technique. And if you're lacking this right now, that's when people are tripping over each other, right? You don't know whose job starts and ends where. You don't know, am I supposed to pick that up, or is somebody else going to pick that up? And a key part of this as well is knowing when to say no. As a leader of product management teams for years, I would find my product managers who want to solve problems, right? As a product manager, you love to solve problems, but you want to solve problems. And so whenever a problem comes across your desk, you're like, okay, I'll fix it. Instead of stopping and thinking for a second, you know what? I really should let our dev team solve this problem. Or I really should let, if we've got a maintenance team, I should let the maintenance team fix this bug rather than jumping on it myself. When you have clear roles and responsibilities, then you are able to figure that out quickly, triage, and know when to say no. And that's a key part of having clear responsibilities as well.
And don't do this yourself, work with your team to actually establish it. So this is also enables you to establish the roles and responsibilities across your team with them. So everybody's on the same page from the beginning.
Absolutely, right? So number one, having a clear understanding of what the product manager is supposed to do and what the rest of the team is supposed to do is important. As a leader of product management, though, I have to tell you that oftentimes the role of product management is undervalued, right? I've come to a couple of different companies where folks didn't even know what product management does, right? There was one time where I was working for a company where I was reporting to the VP of marketing, was a director of product management, and we had skip level interviews one time around. So I sat down with the CEO one day, and I'd been there 4 or 5, maybe 6 months when I had the skip level with the CEO. And after we sat down and chit chatted for a few moments, then the CEO kind of turned to me and says, Roger, I really don't know what you do. And I was like, okay, not a great place to be. I've already been here 6 months and he doesn't know what product management does, right? So you do need to start with leadership. You got to make clear to them, hey, this is what we're here to help do. We're here to figure out how to make awesome products that satisfy customer problems, and make that clear to your leadership team far and wide. And this requires constant communication. You can't just send out an email one day and say, okay, I've done my job, now everybody gets it. It's going to have to be something where you're going to repeat and repeat this communication over and over again. You're also going to have to respect boundaries. So there are going to be times where, look, the development team needs to figure out the architecture, not product management. So you've got to also respect the roles and responsibilities of other players that are going on. And you've got to also ensure accountability. Hold yourself and your team accountable for the things that you're supposed to be delivering, and make sure that other teams are doing their jobs as well, because that also allows you to then not have to get into fire drill mode constantly. So keep advocating, right? Now, another thing about product management is that you want to have a clear career path, okay? And that's important for product managers. A lot of folks find product management an appealing career, so folks want to come over from another team into product management, and I've helped people do that before. It's exciting to be able to bring somebody up into the role, but then they want to be able to see, well, how do I grow as a product manager? And there's typically lots of opportunities to grow as a product manager. And it can stay inside the realm of product management, or it can be moving on to become a general manager, right? Or being able to become the head of a development team. So whatever your interests lie, just figure that out. And we've got here a download link that you can use.
I'm posting this download link into the chat box so you can have it yourself. Right. This is our career plan template. We actually use this in other webinars, and it's a really helpful tool. Now, I think what's important to note here is that everyone in your organization has a clear career path. It's not just you individually, but if you're leading a team, it's all of them. So we encourage you to use this template or find one that works for you, and make sure that everybody knows where are they going so that they stay, right? And they stay and they improve.
So as a product management leader, what I would do is use a template like this one. I use something a little bit simpler. This is way more robust than when I was leading teams. But what I would do, though, is make each individual product manager own their own career. I wasn't going to drive it. I was going to be their aide. I was going to be their coach. But they had to figure out where they wanted to go next. And so for those of you who are individual product managers, my message to you is you own this. And as the leader, they're supposed to help you. And then my message to leaders is you may have to nudge some product managers along and make sure that, one of their quarterly goals is to establish their career plan. And then you're going to provide them the support to get that done. Make sure they have the time and resources, but it's still their deliverable, right? So it's important that you as a leader support this effort and also provide the resources. And we'll talk more about that in a little while to make it possible for them to actually achieve the career path they're looking for. All right, so in this first section, we've talked about the importance of roles and responsibilities. We've talked about making sure that product management is a valued and respected part of your company. And what I'd like to do now, Rina, is to start a poll. I'll explain the answers to this question, and people can then be filling out the poll. So the question here is, how well is the product management role at your company right now? How well do you think it's valued and respected? Is it very well respected? Are product managers clearly leading the roadmap? Are they clearly defining what the next steps are in this product's evolution? That would mean they're very, very well, right? Very well respected. Or is it something where there's a lot of conflict going on between the development team and maybe marketing or sales? Are you in a situation where sales really is actually leading what goes next on the roadmap? Then you're maybe just okay, or not very well, or not well at all. So let's see what people are doing.
All right, I have launched the polls, so please enter your responses. They're actually coming in, very interesting, as usual. So far, we've it's actually weighted somewhere that I did not expect, but I'll give it another couple seconds here and then we'll close it. All right. So I'm sharing the results right now. 10% said very well, 37%, the majority of the poll said pretty well, 29% said just okay, 20% said not very well, and 5%, only 5% said not well at all. So that's actually a good thing.
Encouraging. Yep.
Yeah, that's definitely encouraging.
Excellent. Good. All right. So if this is an area where you're finding some struggles, then some tips that I would recommend for you to improve these issues, like I said earlier, define roles clearly, and you can even just use that template that you saw a couple at the beginning of this section to do it at a very high level, right? Teach your product managers to be able to say no. When people are asking them to do things that are not part of their responsibility, then they should respectfully, right, redirect that traffic to the right person to be taking care of things. That's really important, right? And then
Roger,
yeah.
just 1 second. I'm just seeing the poll still up. Did you maybe switch to the slides?
Okay, I've got the slides showing, I think. Did you close the poll?
I did, yeah.
Okay. So then I also saw that my webcam disappeared.
All right, give us 1 moment.
As people can see your screen. People can see you. All right, what's going on here?
I am not sure, but
sharing. It says off-air poll in progress. Okay, I hit the close.
Sorry, everyone, while we're trying to figure out, I did close the poll, but I'm just seeing the poll.
Okay, so I just pressed close, share, and now I'm gonna hide. All right, are you able to see my screen now?
No.
On air, showing screen. Okay.
Okay, slides are showing, so let's move on. I won't see them, that's okay.
Okay, so tips to improve role-related issues. I talked about the fact that you got to define the roles clearly. You can stay high level when you do that, right? Learn to say no. Product managers need to be able to respectfully and politely say, not my job. Let's make sure that the right person does help you, right? And then the key point that I made to product managers over the years when they were like, look, nobody's respecting me. And I'm like, well, I can't like make an edict. You got to respect the product manager better. The real thing you got to do as a product manager is deliver real value every day. When you share the results of an interview you did with a customer, when you show competitive analysis information, when you show the adoption rate of your product, that's when you're delivering real value. And that's when product managers are going to want to start following you every day. That's when everybody else on the team, is going to want to start following you every day. So that's crucial. Then as a product management leader, you've got to support career planning and professional development. You've got to walk the talk and be able to make sure that people are doing that. All right, so let's keep going. In the second category of how we're going to diagnose the health of your product management team, we're going to look at alignment, and we'll talk about alignment in a couple of different ways. The first way to look at alignment is to look at how well is your product strategy aligned with your corporate strategy. And in this slide, we point out the fact that business strategies are almost always inherited by the product manager. They come from above. Either the overall corporate strategy or your business unit strategy is going to drive what that business unit is interested in. Is it about attaining more market share? Is it about growing revenue this year? Is it about penetrating a new market because now we're going to go up market and go after a larger company size than say we had pursued in the past? Or we're going to go after a new consumer that we hadn't gone after before? So those are things that are often inherited by a product manager. The market strategy is something that marketing and product management should work together on, and that's something that you should definitely influence in terms of this is how we can go after this market, right, with the right product mix and the right pricing strategy and with the right marketing campaign. And then ultimately, you're responsible as a product manager for the product strategy, right? That's yours to manage. Now, the alignment here is crucial. You got to make sure that your product is in fact going in the right direction in terms of the benefits that it's offering that are going to help realize those marketing strategies above, they come true, that then help realize the business strategies are also being achieved up above as well. So with those things in mind, this alignment is crucial. And I'm surprised, frankly, how often I see products that are, yeah, the product may be gaining market share, but it's not generating the profits that it needs to be generating. And that's what the market strategy has said is the most important thing. So you've got to make sure that your product strategy is contributing to the market strategy. Now, here's the cool thing. When that happens, then you are actually able to motivate your team to keep producing because they are excited to see that what they're doing on that product is contributing to the overall market strategy. And I don't know, Rina, if you turned your webcam off or if I'm just not seeing it. But
well, apparently everyone can see us. I'm just having some trouble on my end because I only also just see you. That's okay. We're just gonna roll with the punches. So keep going.
Wow. All right. Then, yeah, as we're talking about alignment, are we aligned in how we go about making decisions, right? So we've got up here a DAISY chart, and this is a typical way of figuring out how to go about making decisions. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail today, but if you're interested, put some questions in and we can follow up offline. But DAISY charts are allowing you to make it clear who's involved in each decision and who's going to ultimately make the decision and who's going to contribute to that decision. So it's an important thing to establish. If you're in an organization right now where the decision's made a different way every day, that doesn't lead to being able to bring alignment together on your product strategy and your overall business or market strategy. The other thing is you want to make sure that if you're following a process, and we're going to talk more about that in a little while, the key decisions are being made at these gates in the process. And you can see the little gold arrows pointing to these key moments as you're developing a new product or as you're building an update to a product or a new version of a product or a new physical version of your product. You want to check in every once in a while as you're getting ready to take that product to market and make sure it's headed in the right direction. You're making the decisions that are going to then yield the results that you're looking for this product.
And I like to make the point that if you have a well-established process, it actually makes it a lot easier for you to make decisions because not all decisions have to be made at each of those gate reviews, right? The conceive gate going into plan has a very specific set of decisions that need to be made. And by having a gate review process, you actually can postpone decisions until you the required decisions until you have the information. So it's really important to have a process established and to follow it and use gate reviews as a way to accelerate decision making that matters to that gate.
Right, absolutely. Yep, and we'll talk more about this when we get to the process phase as well, okay? Another key aspect of this is to make sure that you know how to measure product success. So if you've established a product strategy that's well aligned with your market strategy, then you've got to have metrics to make sure that in fact the product is delivering on that product strategy, right? So you want to develop these success metrics that are based on the objectives that we've already set for this particular product in this release. You want to align that to the larger metrics, we talked about that, and then you want to establish at the start of this program, right? When you build these metrics out, oftentimes they will have implications on your product requirements. You won't be able to measure usage correctly the way you want to measure it if you don't put the right instrumentation into your product from the beginning. And if you're talking about a non-digital product, then you're going to have to measure usage by purchases, but you'll also measure usage by questions that are coming into customer support or by people who fill out their registration card. That's why every time you open a physical product, there's almost always a registration card. People want to, in those kind of businesses and physical products, be able to measure, well, how much are people engaging with our product? How are they using it? So there's different ways to measure usage. And as you're building the product, you got to make sure that you're baking into the product, either the product itself or in the support mechanisms or in the packaging, that you're able to actually measure the right things and make sure that you measure those things so that you can then make sure you're actually achieving your product strategy. Very important. And this last point is a good one in terms of putting a stake in the ground means set some goals. we are going to try to increase usage with this next release by 2%. We are going to try to increase profits by 50%, whatever it might be. You've got to set some aggressive goals, but realistic, but set aggressive goals and put that stake in the ground.
I want to actually talk directly to the leaders or the ones who want to grow into their career to be product leaders. I find that a lot of teams really need psychological safety to be able to put stakes in the ground, because sometimes when you commit to something and you're so unsure of where you're actually going to end up, it's hard to make any commitment. But it's really important to just say, we need to put a stake in the ground just so that we know where we're performing, and that commitment does not mean, it's suddenly a failure. We need to then understand what was the decision process that led us to thinking that was the appropriate number as well.
Right. So it all connects.
Encourage you to think of it that way. Yeah.
Yeah. You've got to know how you've made your decisions and have records of that, and then be able to fall back on that when things might be a struggle, but learn quickly and adapt, right? That's going to be important as well. We'll talk more about that in a little while when we get to process. In terms of alignment, you've got to be aligned with your customers, right? This is a crucial step that often gets missed, especially for more mature businesses that feel like they already know their customers well. Those businesses run the risk of getting out of touch with their customers. So it's important to revisit this if you've got an existing business and you've got existing products. And if you're starting up a new product or entering a new market, then it's important to start from the beginning. What are the groups you're going to serve? What are your market segments? Who then in those groups are the personas that you're going to make this product appealing to? And you got to measure all the stakeholders, right? Not just necessarily the end user, but also the persons or people that are going to influence the purchase decision. You may have a technical decision maker. You may have got you've got a financial decision maker. Those folks are personas you have to pay attention to as well. Then you're going to hopefully build a journey map. This journey map allows you to track how both users and other stakeholders are going to interact with your company and with your product over the life cycle of that product. And then you're going to look for these problem scenarios in that journey map. How are you going to then solve those problems and delight your customers? So any alignment is going to have to start with alignment with your customers and their needs. Okay. Then product managers individually have got to know their own priorities, right? Establish what are going to be your key criteria for success. And we put a table up here that's an example of looking at, okay, I'm going to look at pain for my customers, for example, as being the most important thing that I'm going to track for this particular release, because we've gotten, say, an increase in customer complaints recently. So now we know that that's something we've got to work on. So that's where we're going to focus on this. So that's why we weighted that. Pain for customers, we weighted the most, as well as the customer impact that we are going to have with each particular benefit that we want to deliver, right? So you've got to make sure you've got some data behind this, and that goes back to the previous slide in terms of understanding your customers and then measuring activities with your product. Then use that to establish what your key priorities are. That's alignment between you and the rest of your team to drive the team in the right direction. Okay? And then you've got to know how to partner with the rest of the team. I already talked about you've got to deliver value every day, right? And you've got to help the team always stay focused. And this does require a continuous loop of conversation, right? Making sure that their focus is always on the customer, making sure that the whole team knows the goals for this particular release or this particular research project, whatever it might be. And you got to build up those relationships around this entire wheel that we show frequently of product management having to be a key conductor of communications and activity, right? And then the way you show value every day is by bringing that market expertise, by having a deep understanding of what your customers need, what the competitive situation is, where the market is going right now. That's what brings you credibility. And I want to pause here for a second and say, look, today, right now, we are in tough times. Like, markets have changed dramatically in just 3 weeks. So if you had a plan, I encourage you to dust it off right now and think about, okay, is what we were doing 3 weeks ago still the right thing to be doing? Or do we need to pivot? Do we need to maybe shift? Do we need to adjust? And you may have to go out and do some quick customer research and get a feel for that, but then be dynamic and be thoughtful in how you're leading your team, because maybe it's time to change things, because a lot of conditions in the market have changed over the last 3 weeks.
I think that I just want to underline that point around build relationships. In normal environments, it's really important to over communicate and learn how to explain things in the what's in it for them language. But right now, there's actually a really unique opportunity to double down on building deep relationships, and not just with your team, but also with your customers, right? Your customers are also experiencing this time. And if you reach out to them as product managers right now, this is an opportunity to deepen the tie between you. So I really encourage you to think more about what is going on in your customer's life as well.
Absolutely. All right, well, let's try to do our next poll. So Rina, if you want to do
my best.
Let's open this poll up and I'll explain it as you're running the poll. So we talked about a number of different things that you could measure. I picked one question here to get some feedback on, is how well do our products help achieve corporate goals, right? So that alignment between your product strategy and your corporate strategy. So how well is that going on right now? So answer with, very well. We really can see the direct connection between what our product does is helping achieve corporate goals. Or is it just kind of okay? I think I get it, but maybe not completely, or not well at all. I don't see how my product is actually helping achieve these goals.
So I did launch the poll. I hope it's working, but I'm not seeing any votes coming in. So I'm going to just check in with my team. It looks like it's not being launched.
Okay, I'm going to try launching it then.
Please.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry guys, I'm experiencing some very interesting technical difficulties, but we're trying to go through with it as best we can.
Yep, this is the challenge of when we're all working from home. Yep, all right, so the poll seems to be running, so I guess, yeah, so.
So you were able to launch it?
I was, yeah, it's launched.
Perfect.
I see numbers coming in. It says collecting responses. Great. So.
Roger, how do you feel about me logging off really quick and trying to log back in?
I think that's fine.
Okay, I'll be right back.
Okay, no problem. No problem at all. All right, so we're seeing the poll going right now. And I'm going to say, let's hold it open for another 10 seconds. I don't see responses. Responses seem to be slowing down. Nope, I see a couple. Okay, here we go. 68% of you have voted. Very good. When I get up to say about 80%, I'll close the poll. We're at 70% now, so keep on voting, folks. All right, another 5 seconds or so. All right, I'm going to close the poll. So I'm going to close the poll and I'm going to share the results. So hopefully you're all seeing this. We found that, this is encouraging. 47% of you are seeing strong alignment, pretty well, strong alignment between your products and helping them achieve corporate goals. 17% said very well. 29% though said just okay. So there's certainly some room for improvement here, no question, right? Okay, so I'm going to hide the poll results and keep going. So in this section, when we're talking about alignment, how do you go about improving, making sure that you as a product manager and you as a product management leader are aligned with your leaders above you about your strategy, making sure that there's a clear connection between what your executive team thinks needs to be happening and what your products are delivering, right? You then need to focus on customer needs. That's crucial to the success of the product itself. Agree on how you're going to go about making some decisions as things evolve, right? Put that stake in the ground, as we were talking about, set some audacious goals and try to go after them, and then agree on objectives. And this is a key point. It helps you limit feature fights, right? And if you've got, say, 3 product objectives and they're well aligned with your corporate goals, and whenever either a salesperson or marketing or even the development team come and says, this is the cool shiny object, we should go after this, let's go make this. Stop for a moment, look and see whether this new shiny object is truly aligned with those 3 goals that we were talking about earlier, right? And if it is, then maybe it is a great opportunity. Pursue it. Build some metrics for success, that if you're going to go do this, how do we measure that it's in fact going to contribute to your product goals? But if it's not well aligned, this gives you the necessary data and the necessary position to say, look, Our corporate objectives are up here. We set our product objectives are here, right? And we've got to achieve those product objectives. And I don't see how this new thing is actually going to help with that product objective. And that's how you can then reduce the amount of feature fighting that's going on. Okay. All right, let's move on to our next category of how do we know what success looks like, right? So this is not just product success. We're going to talk about a couple of different things. We are going to talk about product success. And here are some of the typical things that you do to measure product success, right? You're going to look at sales, obviously. You're going to look at profitability. You're going to look at engagement, and this is crucial. And again, for digital products, this is easier, but you can certainly look at engagement for non-digital products as well. Are people using customer support? Are people using parts of the product that may have a digital touch point? More and more non-digital products have an application or a website that's a part of it. You can measure then engagement there. You can also look at returns and refunds. That's a crucial part of understanding what's going on. Ultimately, are you driving customer value, right? And your earlier customer research that we talked about is going to be a key to understanding whether or not you're driving that customer value, right? So first of all, are you measuring product success well, and are you keeping track of it? And we'll talk about getting into a rhythm about that in a few slides. Another part of this, though, is making sure we take the product to market effectively, right? You've got to make sure that you've got a good team, and this typically is way beyond just your development team. It's now talking about product marketing and your overall marketing team to make sure that everybody's aligned in taking the product to market. There have been a number of products that were amazing products, and then they weren't marketed very well, and that's why they failed. So you want to make sure that even though you, as a product manager, sometimes you think maybe I'm not responsible for product marketing. If you have product marketing help, of course, you want them to be in the driver's seat and you're playing an assisting role. But if you don't, then you're probably wearing some of that product marketing hat. So it's crucial then that you are helping drive the product to market successfully, or you're supporting your product marketing manager for making sure that happens. And these are a long list of things to be thinking about. I'm not going to go into detail here, but make sure you know that your product is being driven to market successfully. And then you've got to get into this rhythm that I was talking about. You've got to pay attention to the success metrics and respond quickly. So gather data, and this can be both digital and non-digital. So you're going to be continuing to conduct customer surveys for products where you can't get digital engagement. Get that data together and then analyze it. Look for things that matter to your customers. If you've identified that customers really care about the way they are able to, say, unload or load the product every day, right? If you're talking about a copier, for example, and that's not going well, then you've got to be able to say, well, what can I do to make that an easier process? Maybe it's getting supplies, right? Can you have your copier identify when its ink is low and send a message over the internet to go grab and place an order automatically for that ink to come in? So if that's an area of concern, can you use some digital technology to improve that product and make that product more successful for your customers? And then you take action, right? And this is a continuous cycle that you've got to go through over and over again in order to improve your product. So this is something that we talk a lot about in terms of digital transformation, but in any business, pay more attention to your success metrics and respond quickly. It's an important part of how you're going to make your product success an ongoing living thing that you manage. A lot of product managers think once the product's out the door, they're done. Not the case at all, right? All right, let's do our next poll, right? I'd like to see now, I'm going to ask how well are your product success metrics reviewed regularly and used to adjust product strategy. So let me pick that poll, okay, and let's launch it. All right, we're distributing the poll, it's going out. Hopefully people are going to see that in just a moment. And here I changed the answers, right? So how frequently are you reviewing regularly your product success metrics and then adjusting your product strategy? So it's not just looking over the metrics, it's doing both, right? So are you doing it all the time? Is this a cadence that you're in regularly, weekly maybe? Are you doing most of the time? Yeah, we kind of pay attention, but not all the time. We only do it occasionally or some of the time. Or are you just really not, launching the product, it goes out and we're just not paying attention to what happens next, right? And so be honest, have a look at this. I see some people are saying never, that's great. I appreciate your honesty. And I want to see how we're doing in this area because this is an important part. Okay, we've got to 60% of folks have voted. Rina, are you back yet? Taking advantage of this time to see? No, not yet. All right. Wow, this is interesting. Very interesting. So we got 63% of votes are in. I'm going to wait a few more seconds to get some more votes in. And we'll see how the results are turning out. But as I'm seeing them, very interesting. All right, let's close the poll. We've got about 70% of votes are in now. And what we're seeing is very interesting. I'm surprised a little bit by this, but I'm encouraged because you guys are being honest, and I want you to think about that. I'm now sharing the poll results, and the center of gravity here is at some of the time. Only some of the time are folks seeing that their success metrics are being reviewed and regularly and being used to adjust your product strategy. So this is going to be a key area to try to work on and improve. 20.1% say most of the time. That's encouraging. But even 34% only occasionally are doing this work. So let's talk about some tips to improve, right? Let's close the poll, hide it. All right. I'm going to switch to the next slide. So tips to improve. All right. So what I've just seen, it's important then for you to establish a rhythm, right? That has got to be the thing to do. It starts by having data, right? So if you don't even have your data yet, then start simply, right? Maybe it is just revenue and some sense of customer engagement. And it can be as simple as, if you don't have digital engagement, can you at least look at purchase data, right? And can you get to that purchase data more rapidly? Is there a way to look at it on a weekly basis instead of a quarterly basis? And use that information to better guide what's going on. Can you look at that data, say, geographically, and see whether maybe there's one geography that's doing better than another? And then look at the sales team or look at the techniques being used in that geography to see, well, what's the difference? And is that going to be a helpful way for me to improve engagement in other markets? If you do have digital, then you've got to be using that data and building out a good understanding of what works well in your product and what doesn't, right? Then get into that rhythm. I don't want to skip bullet 2 though and say you've got to leverage your internal and external experts. And by internal experts, I mean number one, customer support. Be talking to them, right? Especially if you don't have a digital product. They know every day what are the calls or emails that they're receiving where customers are complaining about what's going on, right? And that can be a good guide to you of how to start improving your product and speeding up your response time. Then get into that rhythm. And for your product, maybe monthly is fine, right? It depends on the cadence of adoption for your particular market, right? But get into that rhythm and then use gate reviews. We talked about that earlier to make the key decisions. Very important. So number one, given what I just saw in the poll results, I would say is start establishing a rhythm. Just put it on the Outlook calendar. I'm going to start a weekly meeting, and if we don't have data yet, then that weekly meeting is going to be dedicated to starting to get that data. All right, let's move into the last category of process and tools. Are you properly equipped for success? And we're going to start with making sure, does your process today support customer research? This is a critical part of having an effective process, is that are you in touch with your customers? And when you are doing it, making sure that you've got real customer insights. And here I kind of wrote this slide from a leadership perspective, because what I have found over the years is oftentimes people pay lip service to, yeah, we listen to our customers, but then they really actually don't provide the time or the budget or give the product manager the skills they need, or maybe the resources. Can you go get market research support either externally or from some other part of the organization to be able to build up that customer insight? So you as product management leaders have got to be able to carve out the time and the budget to really conduct customer research, whether it be surveys, which can be very inexpensive and very quick, or it is doing focus groups, or is getting out of the office and conducting customer research by interviews. All of these things have got to be budgeted for in terms of both time and money. And that if you don't want to pay lip service to this, you really do have to put some resources behind this. And the last point I want to make is honesty. Don't do customer research if no one's going to pay attention to it, right? If your company has what I call hubris, we know this already, and they're not going to listen to the results, then you're going to have to use some of the larger customer success metrics or product success metrics to point out, look, revenue's dropping, for example. We need to go back to basics and understand what our customer needs are, right? So you're going to have to engender this sense of honesty in the organization so that customer research is actually paid attention to. Very, very important. All right, then do you have a product process that you use consistently, right? If you're using a product process successfully, all the things we talked about earlier in this webinar can come true. A good product process helps you develop strategy and streamline your execution. It allows you and requires you to analyze what's going on with your business and make clear decisions. The gate reviews that we talked about earlier are where you check in with the whole organization or the right constituents and make sure you're making good decisions that people can follow, right? A good product process will also encourage learning and continuous improvement so that every time you go through it, you learn something new about how to measure customer success, how to be able to drive a product to market faster, right? And a good product process should also make sure that you're looking at both product and you're also looking at marketing, right? I talked about earlier, successful products have failed in the market because of a lack of good marketing. So look at your product process and ask yourself, are we hitting on these 4 things, right? I encourage you to come back to this slide after we publish the webinar and use that to kind of do your own diagnosis of this. And also use the health checklist we're going to send you in a little while. As a product management leader, you should be looking at the whole product portfolio, right? And this is a complicated subject, so right now I'm going to encourage you to just do some research offline, but look at establishing some common product metrics. Obviously, profit margin can be one of those that you can measure consistently across your entire product portfolio. But you also want to be looking at, do I have products in a good line? We've got this product life cycle at the bottom of the chart. Do I have a product A that's in the maturity cycle and it's generating good money that I can then use to invest in product B, which is the next product I'd like to introduce? You really want to have X's all across this entire product life cycle so that you've got a healthy mix of products at different stages of life cycle development. And the chart in the upper right is the BCG matrix. You can look that up in terms of BCG portfolio. And that's also making sure that we're launching experiments. These are our question mark products. We have some stars that are seeing some great market share growth, as well as in a market itself that's growing well. And we have some cash cows. Those are cash cows are typically in the maturity phase, and they're generating extra cash that you can use to make these investments earlier in the product life cycle. Very, very important. You also need to make sure you've got some good tools. And I've got to say, over my career as a product management leader, I'm so excited in the last 5 years by the number of new tools that are coming out, right? So I've got some of them up here: Product Board, Product Pad, AHA. These are all product management tools. I'm not talking about Jira. I'm not talking about Rally. Those are development tools. I'm talking about product management tools. And so these are some, there's more, but these are some to consider that help you actually organize input of customer research and analysis and prioritization, and then building a product roadmap, and great tools for sharing and communicating. The template that you see over here on the left is about making sure that you're asking yourself the right questions. And this is, we have the product lifecycle toolkit. It's $99, and it comes with a ton of templates that help you ask the right questions. Ask the right strategic questions early in your product lifecycle. Ask the right execution questions later on in the lifecycle to make sure that you're doing the right things at the right time. So as a product manager, these are all great tools to help you organize your thinking, think strategically, and execute effectively. And if you don't have those great tools, you're at a competitive disadvantage these days, right? Then the last thing is, do you retire products? Believe it or not, this is one of the areas that, as we work with companies, we find companies are chronically bad at this. I got to be honest. They don't know how to retire their products effectively. They let these SKUs build up in their inventory, and then you've got customer support problems on products that are really not generating much revenue, and yet they are still out there causing customer support problems, or they require fixes that you just don't want to spend time on because you'd like to be spending those time on the more profitable products. So learning to retire products effectively has got to be a part of your process. All right, so I want to make time for some questions, but I do want to run one more poll. So how well, and let's get this poll started, how well does your product process drive success? Let's launch the poll. I want to see whether or not you feel like, and think about all the things we've just been talking about in terms of, does this process allow you to think strategically and execute effectively? Does it allow you, do you have the right tools that you need to be successful, right? And are you able to retire your products effectively as well, right? So let's see how we're doing on the poll results. Some questions, some answers are coming in. This is good. I will wait a few moments to let you folks fill out these questions. All right. Question answers are coming in. This is good. This is good. 41% so far are saying just okay. That seems to be the center of gravity at the moment. I'll leave the poll open for just a little bit longer. All right, in the interest of time, I'm probably going to close this poll down. Let's share the results. All right, so the center of gravity is kind of just okay. All right, so there's a lot of room for improvement here, although 33%, close second place for pretty well, good, glad to hear that. But 24% not very well. So there's a lot of room for improvement in terms of product processes. All right, well, let's talk about that. Hide the results, move on. So tips to improve your processes and tools. You've seen what your processes should be doing. So I'm going to give you a perspective of, all right, how do we go about identifying a clear gap? So look at all these things that I just talked about. Look for a clear gap. Define the benefit of improving that gap, and you've seen now what a good process can do. Then get some buy-in for that change. If you're the leader of your product management team, that's a little bit easier. If you're a product manager, then talk to your leader about this. Make that change, but just as with your products, have some metrics for success, right? And then do the age-old advice of your shampoo bottle, which is lather, rinse, repeat, right? You've got to be able to do this over and over again. You are going to pick hopefully the most important thing to fix and see a benefit from that, then pick the next thing and move on to be able to fix that. All right, so I always like to ask my product managers this last question as we're wrapping up. So what? Take a look at your team's maturity, identify your areas to improve, then pick one of those areas and use the tips that we've talked about, and don't wait. Now is the time to start, okay? So that's so important for you to be able to really take advantage of what we talked about today and there were a lot of answers that were sort of in the middling ranges. Take advantage of what we've given you today to figure out some things that you'd like to be able to fix. Now, you're going to get a gift in the follow-up email. You're going to see that we'll send you a link to the Product Management Organizational Health Checklist. Every registrant will receive this download. So that's 20 questions that will help you in these 4 areas to more thoroughly evaluate how are you doing and help you find, okay, where's the area that I think we're weakest? And that's the area then that I would love for you to be able to take and move forward using the tips from that section to improve your product management process, okay? All right, I'm gonna open this next poll, but then I'm also gonna take a look at questions. So you guys can be doing the poll while I am answering some questions. And it looks like Rina still hasn't joined me. So I am now going to share out the last poll and take some questions. Okay, launching that poll. And I apologize if folks, you didn't see things today, given that we were working from home and not able to coordinate that we normally do. It was a little bit more challenging. Let me look and see what we've got in terms of questions. All right, so first question that we had was, let me scroll through here. All right, as a more junior product manager, how can I get leadership attention when I think that there's misalignment? Okay, so great question. When you're thinking about this, take a look at what data can you bring to the conversation with your leader to show that you think there's some misalignment. Can you demonstrate, hey, I'm not convinced that this product is really helping, for example, contribute to our corporate benefits. What could we do? And whenever you're talking to somebody above you, I always like to propose that you turn your thoughts into questions, right? So ask a question of your leadership so that they are then able to think for themselves, and you can kind of lead them to the answers of that question, all right? That's a better way than just coming out and saying that you're not going to disengender yourself with your leader. You're going to be able to say, hey, I'd like you to think about this, right? Okay. And then another question, I see we're running short on time, so I'm just going to take one more question, which was, the webinar pointed out several issues we have on our team. How do I know which issue to try and address first? Great question. I tend to lean towards role clarity and decision making as being the most critical things to fix first. If you're finding that you are not getting that role clarity, then that's going to be one of the key issues you've got to work on right now. If you aren't doing that, that rises to the top of the list for me. All right, then having the right tools and process are very important. Of course, customer needs is crucial. If you don't feel like you have a good connection with your customers, that's going to be crucial as well. So just be sure, number one, roles and responsibilities are clear. If that's an area of challenge for you, work on that. Then number two, I would say processes. Very important to make sure your processes are supporting you so you can move more quickly. And customer connection. I might even put customer connection a little bit higher, right? But those are all crucial things. Now, I know we got a number of other questions. If we've got enough of them, we will try to post a blog post next week to answer those questions. I really appreciate your attendance and participation today. And what I would like to do is say, hey, you know what? Take a look at our next webinar. It's already open for registration. It connects to a panel that we conducted last week on women in product management, trailblazing their careers. And so sign up now for how can women in product management get the recognition they deserve. And we're bringing in a guest presenter, Linda Thompson, to talk to us about how to do this without bragging, right? How to make it a positive way to promote yourself in your career. As Rina mentioned as well, we're working on putting together a quick webinar on product management in crisis. Pay attention to your newsletters and emails from us. And in the next week or so, we will announce when we can put together that webinar. So we can also help you in these challenging times. Once again, I thank you for your patience today as we struggled a little bit. Working from home doing this webinar was a little more challenging, but thank you so much for coming, and I hope that you found this helpful. It looks like from the poll results that you did, and I'm looking forward to continuing to be here, 280 Group as a community to support you in these difficult times. All right, folks, have a great day. Go forth and be great product managers, and I will talk to you later.